Hey guys, Jordan Moorhead here. Today I just wanted to talk about selling your rental property in Austin. So when you're selling a rental property, it's unique. It's a little different than selling an owner-occupied property. Of course, when you're the owner, you're going to take the best care of it possible. You have incentive as the owner and occupant to make sure the sale goes well and make sure you get the most money. Your tenants don't always have that. They don't get anything when you sell the property. In fact, what they might get is they might either get a notice to vacate or they might get a rent increase. Best case scenario, they get their rent renewed at the same or higher rate. Probably not going to be the same. So you need to remember that when you're selling a rental property, if your tenants really don't have any benefits. So there's a few things you can do when you're selling a rental property to make it profitable for you and easy to deal with the tenants. So the first thing is, a lot of times here in Austin, people will not allow showings until you have an accepted contract. I don't recommend that, and here's why. When people can't see a property, they're not likely to pay as much for it. They're not as likely to get as excited for it. It's just in the end going to end up with you making less money. It's mostly investors like myself who want to get a good deal, who are going to put offers on properties when they can't see it. Now, if you let people see it, you may sell your rental property to an owner occupant. They're going to pay a lot more. You want to do this. Before you go into this process, have someone like myself, a realtor, talk to these tenants, make sure that they understand their leases are not changing, nothing's changing. We're going to make it as easy as possible on them. Maybe you arrange that only showings during certain times. That being said, you want to make sure you allow showings as often as possible. When you restrict it to a really tight window of showings, I've had tenants ask for only business hour showings, so when they'd be at work. That doesn't work so well for people who are trying to buy houses. You remember, most people who are trying to buy houses are looking at them after work. So that's after 5 p.m. or on the weekends. You need to make it as easy as possible for these people to get in the houses and as easy as possible for them to pay as much as possible for this property. Now, going back to tenants and units. So if you own a multi-unit property and you've got a lease coming up in one of the units, this is an awesome opportunity to sell this property to an owner occupant who's going to move those tenants out and then move into it. They're going to pay you more when they're living in it, almost always, compared to an investor. So if you have a unit that's either vacant or is coming vacant, do not renew that lease. Let it go month to month, or just let the tenants move out if they're looking to move out. Don't fill it up. You're in a better scenario when you're selling a multi-unit property. So that's 2 to 4 units, because those qualify for residential financing as low as 3.5% down. And you want to let that unit be vacant if you can. Always leave at least one unit vacant if at all possible. If you can't leave it vacant or you don't want to leave it vacant, leave it month to month. Do not renew these leases. That goes across the board. Do not renew leases before you're about to sell the property. You need to leave that up to the next owner. I know you might like your tenants, but in the end, you're always going to make more money when you give the next owner control over what's happening with the property. If you give them 2 leases on a duplex that were just signed last month for what might be below market, probably is below market rent, because somebody else is going to come in, spend a bunch of money on the property and get the rents up as high as possible. But when you give them a below market rent with leases that were just signed, that's infinitely less attractive for a landlord. You don't want to buy a property that has leases that are just signed that aren't at the highest rents possible. That being said, even if you have 2 leases on a duplex that are at the highest rents possible, you've still cut out so many buyers, because so many people want to live in these properties. Now they can't do it. They need to be able to move in within 60 days per the lender's guidelines. So month to month is perfect for that. Leave it month to month. Let the next landlord take care of it. If you've got a 4-unit property, get the leases up on those other 3 as high as you can. Hopefully leave a month to month, but leave a unit vacant if at all possible. always the best way to go, to leave something either vacant or month to month. You're gonna get more money. Do not renew the leases right before you're about to sell. I cannot stress that enough. Do not renew leases and put them on another year, where I've seen so many landlords say, oh, I just renewed them for a 2-year lease. I said, well, you renewed them in a 2-year lease, $400 below market rent. You've just shot yourself in the foot, because the next seller has to wait 2 years to get the rent up, and you already gave them a lower rent anyway. You are extremely hurting yourself if you do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. Again, do not do that. Leave the leases as they are, or let them go month to month. If you can get them up a little bit and they're month to month, that's great. But I cannot stress this enough. Do not put people on 1 to 2 year leases in your properties when you're about to sell it. That hurts you so much. Last point I want to talk about, guys, is fixing up your property before you want to sell it. I know a lot of people say, well, there's tenants in there, they're paying, I don't want to do anything. Why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. And I totally understand. Normally, if you're a landlord, you're not going to fix up the units that your tenants live in just for no reason. But when you're going to sell a property, it's worth it to go in there and fix any major issues that you may have that you know about, just so the next buyer comes in and sees it and says, wow, this thing's perfect. I don't have to do anything. I just need to paint it and re-rent it. I'll be in great shape. So when you're selling a property, no matter what, it always makes more money when it's in good condition. So remember that. Maybe you'll make your tenants happy too by doing it, but fix up the property, make it nice, and make as much money as possible. So follow these 3 tips when you're looking to sell a rental property and make as much money as possible. Again, number 1, allow access as easily as possible. Do not let it be only after an accepted contract. I know that's convenient and easy for you, but it's not going to make you as much money. Leave a unit vacant, or again, absolutely do not renew leases. Or number 3, fix it up and make it nice. So number 2 and number 1 are the most important all these are important, but make sure you are making it as easy as possible for somebody to buy your property and say, I don't have to do anything. Thanks, guys. It applies to rental properties too.